This is a tutorial on how to use packing tape to make a packing tape transfer. I think that's kind of really interesting about this particular transfer technique is that you'll end up with the pigment that you're transferring on the cellophane of the tape. And so you can do really cool things with the transparency of the tape when you're working with the transfer, let's say, in an additional collage that you're going to make. So to do this particular technique, you're going to need an image to transfer. So I have this image of a whale shark, and I've gone ahead and cut that out. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I just decided that I wanted a silhouette. To cut it out, you're going to need some scissors. You're going to need some packing tape, and I like this packing tape that's really wide, but any packing tape will work. You're going to need some way to get the paper wet. So in the process, you need to get the paper wet. So I'm just going to do it with a brush, but you could do it with a sponge or a squirt bottle, and you're going to need some water. So in this case, those are the things we're going to need to make this particular transfer. So you're going to begin by getting your packing tape, and I'm just going to tape that onto the whale shark. Now in this case, the static clean kind of grabbed it and pulled it up. I might have chosen something that was a little smaller because this is going to be bigger than my packing tape, but that's okay. You can use 2 pieces of packing tape. So let me get another piece so that I have the whale shark fully adhered to tape. In this case, that's going to put a seam in your final result. If you didn't want that, you could, Xerox your initial image so that it's smaller. Be aware that any wrinkles that you get in this are going to be in the final. So if you don't want any wrinkles, take time to get them out. I did get a few there. But also the other thing to be aware of is that if you get any fingerprints, so I just noticed that my fingers are messy from the last transfer technique. You're going to leave fingerprints on this. If you don't want that, be careful about that. So I'm just gently taking this up, and I want to flip this over so that it's non-sticky side down. It helps to do this on a surface that it's going to be easy to pull it up from. So I have it on this mounting board, which maybe wasn't the best choice. So I'm just being careful not to pull up the surface of the mounting board. Okay, so I'm going to put that face down. What you're going to do now is you're going to get your sponge or your spray bottle or however you're going to transfer the water. I'm just going to use a brush. And you want to get the back of the paper completely wet. The idea here is that we're going to get the paper wet enough that it can be turned basically back into pulp, and we can remove the paper. So if you remove the paper, then the ink will be adhered to the packing tape, and instead of being ink on a white surface, it'll be ink on a transparent surface, which can be really fun to play with. So you want to get this pretty wet, and you're going to want to let this sit for maybe 10 minutes or so, so I'll speed up the video at this point. Okay, so that's been a few minutes to give the paper time to disintegrate. And basically what you want to do now is just taking the back of your finger, just begin to rub the paper. And I don't know if you can see that, but it'll kind of come up in little, rolls. Just going to keep rubbing it. And you want to get all of it off. This will take a bit of time. At some point, you may need to put more water on it and let it soak again so you can see the paper coming off. So basically, the ink will no longer be held by the paper, it'll be held by the packing tape. I find that you usually have to do this at least twice. So the majority of the paper is gone now. Probably, 85–90% of it is gone. But what will happen is, as this water dries, you'll kind of get a haze of the residual paper still on there. I just accidentally stuck the tape to itself, so let me see if I can get that loose. Probably going to cut that part off anyway, so it won't matter too much. But an example, a teaching moment, don't do that. So try not to stick the tape back to itself. So I don't have any, I forgot to get some paper towels. It could be useful to have some paper towels to kind of help get the last bit of this off. So usually, again, this first rubbing gets the majority of it off, but I still find that usually I have to go back and wet this a second time. You can let it dry so you can tell if you've still got paper on there, but almost always when I've done this in the past, when I've let this dry, there's still a little bit of paper on there, a little bit of haze, and so you might need to let this dry. If you get that haze, then re-wet this and just do the process again to get the last little residual bit. You could take this at this point and actually, run it under some water if that kind of was helpful to get the last bits off. Okay, so if you look at this, if I turn it over, that image is now on the tape, right? And the cool thing about that is that if you then go back and collage this back over the top of something else, you can see through it, right? So I think I would have to rub this again, but I would let it sit and dry, right? Then you'll be able to see kind of a haze. I'm not going to do this part just in the interest of time, but it's basically the same process. You just get it wet again, let it sit for a few minutes, and then rub the rest of it off. And usually with 2 rubbings, you can get all of it off. So I basically just took the Welshark that we just transferred onto the packing tape. I cut some of the excess packing tape away from the edges of the Welshark. Then I took a piece of my sketchbook paper, and to demonstrate how you could use transparency with this process, I just took a marker, and made a background, but this could obviously be any background. It could be other collage things, It could be something that you drew. It could be, another found texture, color, maybe a colored paper, whatever. You'll get the transparency of the tape interacting with whatever you put it over in terms of background, which obviously you wouldn't get that with just traditional collage. So I'm going to try to get this a little closer so you can see. So that part that's the shark's belly that's white, if this was just collage, that would just be white. But because this is transparent, you're getting the blue of the marker showing through. So basically you can just get a different effect, which I think is really interesting. So that's basically the end of this tutorial.